Australia, organising memory boxes for all the important people in my life. But there was even more emotional turmoil as I relayed my story to my wonderfully probing co-writer, Louise. I have been incredibly honest in its writing. I've constantly corrected even the most minor detail to be as truly representative of the facts as possible, whilst trying to minimise the hurt that anybody might experience as a result of my stories. I've also been very happy to take my own mistakes and follies on the chin, to take responsibility for them, and to take the blame. The press often portrays me as a glamorous billionaire. While that might be true, when you really know me, you realise quickly that is one of the last descriptions you would use. My story is about fighting, about hardship, about challenge, about trauma. And yes, it's also about success, about wealth, and about glamour. Above all else, it's about love, friendship, and trying to help people be the best that they can be. I have never been into politics. In fact, there are many aspects of the politician that I despise. Yet because of my vision of COVID-19's effect on the economy, I found myself constantly campaigning in the media and directly with government to encourage the right behaviour on their part in supporting people and businesses throughout the pandemic. I wanted the government to think about building a much bigger, stronger and better post-pandemic Britain by adopting my CPR, Caudwell Pandemic Recovery Plan. The centrepiece of this concept is to build an enterprise zone that would become the Silicon Valley of environmental technology. This would eventually become a huge industry exported all over the world, helping Britain's GDP at the same time as helping to save the world from the impending environmental catastrophe. I write this with passionate hope that this will be the case, allowing Britain to prosper and simultaneously become a fairer society for all, looking after the poor, the aged and the infirm. Towards the end of 2020, I also became painfully aware of the 3 million people who call themselves excluded or forgotten. So I found myself with yet another campaign, this time trying to persuade the government to support these people who had fallen through the cracks of the system. At the time of writing, the government is still insisting that these people are being appropriately helped. I really believe this is not the case and that the government, for whatever reason, is choosing to ignore their existence. There are many heartbreaking cases that I have become aware of, and I find it very difficult as a humanitarian to accept what is happening. This seems to be a constant repeated theme of mine, since I've been outraged many times in recent years by the neglect that Lyme disease patients suffer through the NHS. It is the same story for children with PANS, and autism. We can, of course, only do so much within our budget constraints, but often I feel that so much more could be done for certain categories of people. There is a great deal about the world that I would love to change. I do believe in the capitalist model and low-tax regimes, but I just wish I could influence more rich people to pay all their taxes as appropriate, and to join the Giving Pledge, and commit to donating at least 50% of the wealth to charitable causes during or after their lifetime. These two acts alone would start to address the rather disastrous rich-poor divide in terms of wealth and income. For about 35 years now, I've been talking about our toxic planet and the effect of fossil fuels. The world never seems to respond aggressively enough on these issues, probably for fear that it will cause a small reduction in people's standard of living. I do fear that we've left it too late, and I've formed this conclusion from many years of studying the loss of arable farmland, the reduction of available water supplies, the warming of the planet, and the consequential loss of the polar ice caps, the rising of sea levels and the loss of further arable farmland as a result of flooding the low-lying areas. For instance, scientists don't tell us that polar ice reflects most of the sun's rays and that seawater absorbs most of them, so causing an exponential rise in water temperature. In addition, we have increasingly toxic food, toxic air.